The first time Marcus dismissed my business opinion, I was 19 and he was 27. We were at Dad's retirement dinner, and Marcus had just closed his first major contract for his fledgling logistics company. He spent 40 minutes explaining his business model to the table while I ate my salmon quietly. "What do you think, Rachel?" Dad had asked me, probably out of politeness. "The pricing structure seems tight," I'd said carefully. "But maybe consider building cash reserves before expanding the fleet? In case fuel costs spike or—" Marcus had laughed, cutting me off. "Stick to your college classes, Rach. Business strategy is a bit more complex than Econ 101. Everyone had chuckled. I'd gone back to my salmon. That was 14 years ago. I was now 33, Marcus was 41, and the pattern hadn't changed. He'd built Martech Logistics from a 3-truck operation into what he claimed was a $400 million empire. He had 340 employees, operations in 12 states, and a corner office with a view that he never failed to mention. I ran a small financial consulting firm from a modest office in downtown Seattle, working with mid-sized companies on growth strategy and capital management. I had 6 employees, serviceable profits, and a business model Marcus found endlessly amusing. "Still doing the consulting thing?" he'd ask at family gatherings, the way you'd ask a child if they were still playing with dolls. What Marcus didn't know, what nobody in my family knew, was that I'd made my first $10 million by age 25 through a series of prescient tech investments. By 30, I'd built that into $340 million through careful portfolio management, strategic angel investing, and one particularly lucrative early position in a cloud infrastructure company that had gone public at a $12 billion valuation. I lived modestly, worked quietly, and never discussed my actual financial position. My consulting firm was real but small, more of a professional cover than a primary income source. My actual work was managing my substantial portfolio and serving as a silent partner in several high-growth companies, including my brother's. 8 years ago, Martech Logistics had hit a crisis point. Marcus had expanded aggressively, overextending his credit lines and operating capital. He needed $180 million to avoid collapse, to cover his fleet expansion debt, to finance his facilities, to maintain operations while he restructured. His bank had quietly sought private investors. Through a complex network of LLCs and investment vehicles that my lawyers had carefully structured, I'd become that investor. The terms were generous: 12% annual return, no board seat, complete anonymity, and a strategic advisory role that Marcus never knew came from his silent partner through his financial advisor. For 8 years, I'd watched him build success on my capital while being told at every family gathering that I didn't understand real business. The family meeting was at Marcus's house, a sprawling estate in Bellevue that he'd purchased 3 years ago. All 18 family members were gathered for what Marcus had called an important announcement. We sat in his professionally decorated living room, catered appetizers on glass tables, wine flowing freely. Marcus stood at the front like a CEO addressing shareholders. "I wanted you all here to share some incredible news," Marcus began, beaming. "Martech Logistics has attracted acquisition interest from 3 major firms. We're looking at valuations between $850 million and $1.1 billion. The room erupted in applause. Dad was beaming with pride. Mom was crying. Marcus's wife Jessica was recording on her phone. "This is the culmination of 8 years of strategic vision, aggressive growth, and calculated risk-taking," Marcus continued. "When I started this company 13 years ago with 3 trucks and a dream, people doubted. But I understood something they didn't. I understood leverage, I understood scale, I understood timing." I took a sip of wine and said nothing. "The acquisition should close within 6 months," Marcus said. "Which means this family is looking at generational wealth. My equity stake alone is worth between $600 and $750 million. We're talking about setting up our kids, our grandkids, creating a legacy." More applause. My cousin David raised his glass. "To Marcus, the family's first near-billionaire." Everyone drank except me. I was doing calculations in my head. If Marcus's equity was worth $600 to $750 million at those valuations, and I knew the actual capital structure of his company, he was significantly overstating his position. His equity was worth maybe $200 to $280 million before taxes, accounting for the debt load and the silent partner position that represented 51% of the company's actual value. Rachel, you're quiet, Marcus said, turning his attention to me with that familiar patronizing smile. No congratulations for your big brother? Congratulations, I said evenly. You know, you should take notes, he continued, and several people chuckled. This is what strategic business building looks like. Not small consulting contracts, but real empire building. Understanding capital markets, understanding scale, understanding. I'm familiar with capital markets, I said quietly. Right, your little consulting firm, Marcus said, grinning. How's that going? Still working out of that strip mall office. It's actually a downtown building, and yes, it's going fine. See, that's the difference between small business thinking and real entrepreneurial vision, Marcus said, addressing the room now. Rachel does fine. She makes a comfortable living. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you think big, when you understand how to leverage capital, when you know how to... Marcus, maybe we should talk about your capital structure, I interrupted. The room went quiet. Marcus looked annoyed. What? Your capital structure. Debt-to-equity ratio, investor positions, actual versus claimed equity stakes. Those details. Marcus's smile became fixed. I'm not going to bore everyone with technical details at a celebration, Rachel. Because the numbers you're citing don't account for your debt load or your silent partner position, I continued calmly. If you're claiming $600 to $750 million in personal equity at those valuations, you're either overstating your ownership percentage or not accounting for outstanding obligations. The room was very quiet now. Marcus's face had reddened. Stick to your little side projects, Marcus said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. Real business is beyond you. This is sophisticated corporate finance, not the kind of small-time consulting you do. I understand, I said, nodding. No, clearly you don't, Marcus continued, his frustration showing. You've never built anything significant. You've never managed serious capital. You've never. Rachel, I love you, but you're embarrassing yourself trying to lecture me about my own company. These are acquisition talks with Fortune 500 firms. This is the big leagues. Dad intervened. Marcus is right, honey. This is pretty specialized stuff. Let's just celebrate your brother's success. I smiled politely and went back to my wine. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Marcus's financial advisor, Theodore Chin, who'd been serving as the intermediary between me and Martech Logistics for 8 years. Need to speak with you urgently. Marcus is making statements about valuation that suggest he doesn't fully understand the capital structure. Should I clarify? I excused myself to the bathroom and called Theodore back. Miss Chin, thank you for calling. I'm at Marcus's celebration dinner, and he's announcing acquisition talks with valuations that seem inconsistent with reality. What's he claiming? $850 million to $1.1 billion total company valuation, with his personal equity worth $600 to $750 million. Theodore was quiet for a moment. Miss Chin, you know the actual structure. You hold 51% through the LLC network. At those valuations, your position would be worth $433 to $561 million. Marcus's equity, accounting for debt, would be worth $180 to $240 million before taxes. He's either significantly overstating his ownership or not accounting for the silent partner position. He doesn't know about the silent partner position, I said. You've maintained the anonymity protocol? Absolutely. All communications go through me as the financial advisor. He thinks the silent partner is a consortium of institutional investors. But Miss Chin, these acquisition talks are real. I've seen the preliminary term sheets. If they move forward, the capital structure will become public. Marcus will discover that his sister owns 51% of his company. When? During due diligence, probably within 60 days if talks progress. The acquiring company will require full disclosure of all ownership positions. I see. May I speak candidly, Miss Chin? Please. I've worked with you for 8 years managing this investment. I've watched you provide the capital foundation for Martech Logistics while your brother takes credit for building it alone. I've facilitated your strategic guidance through anonymous channels while watching him dismiss your business acumen at family functions. And now he's about to discover that his younger sister, whom he considers financially naive, has been his majority stakeholder since 2016. Your point. Are you prepared for that revelation? Because it's going to be explosive. I'm prepared, I said. In fact, Theodore, I think it's time to accelerate the timeline. I'd like to execute my withdrawal rights under the partnership agreement. Silence. Then, Ms. Chen, that would trigger a forced liquidation event. Marcus would have 90 days to buy out your position at fair market value or agree to company sale. Given his actual equity and debt load, he can't afford to buy you out. It would force the acquisition talks to accelerate or force him to find alternative investors at much worse terms. I understand the implications. May I ask what precipitated this decision? I'm tired of being invisible while providing the foundation for someone else's ego, Theodore. 8 years of stick to your little projects while building his empire with my capital. I'm done. When would you like me to initiate the withdrawal process? Now. Tonight. File the formal notice with the company's corporate counsel. I want Marcus to receive it first thing Monday morning. Ms. Chen, this is going to destroy your relationship with your brother. Theodore, I don't think we've had a real relationship. We've had a dynamic where he dismisses me while unknowingly depending on me. That's not a relationship worth preserving. Understood. I'll begin the paperwork immediately. You should know that under the partnership agreement, Marcus will have 7 days to respond once he receives notice. During that period, he can request a meeting with the silent partner. Do you want to maintain anonymity during that process? No. When he requests the meeting, tell him the truth. Tell him who's been his silent partner for 8 years. I'm done hiding. I hung up and returned to the celebration. Marcus was holding court, describing his business strategy to an enthralled audience. I sat quietly in the corner, finishing my wine. The party continued for another 3 hours. I left without saying much beyond polite goodbyes. Marcus was too busy celebrating to notice. Over the weekend, my lawyers finalized the withdrawal documentation. On Monday morning at 9:47 a.m., Marcus's corporate counsel received the formal notice. The silent partner who owned 51% of Martech Logistics was exercising their withdrawal rights under the 2016 partnership agreement. Marcus had 7 days to respond with either a buyout offer at fair market value, $433 to $561 million based on current acquisition interest, agreement to accelerate company sale with proceeds distributed per ownership percentages, alternative financing to replace the silent partner position. Marcus called me at 10:23 a.m. I didn't answer. He called again at 10:31, 10:45, 11:02, 11:28. I silenced my phone and continued my Monday morning routine. Coffee, email review, portfolio analysis. At 2:15 p.m. Theodore called. Ms. Chen, Marcus knows. His lawyer explained the partnership structure, the ownership percentages, the withdrawal rights. He's requesting an emergency meeting with the silent partner. He doesn't know it's you yet, but he knows someone owns 51% of his company and is pulling out. He's not handling it well. Tell him the meeting can happen Wednesday at my office. 10 a.m. Should I tell him who he'll be meeting with? No. Let it be a surprise. Tuesday was quiet. My phone showed 47 missed calls from Marcus. Text messages ranged from confused, "Who is the silent partner? Why didn't you tell me someone owned half my company?" to angry, "This is corporate sabotage. My lawyers will fight this." to desperate, "Please call me back. I need your help figuring this out." I responded once at 9 p.m. "I'll see you Wednesday at 10 a.m. at my office. The silent partner will be there." Wednesday morning I arrived at my office at 8:30 a.m. My assistant Sarah had cleared my schedule. Theodore arrived at 9:45 a.m. with his briefcase full of documentation. At 9:58 a.m. Marcus's Mercedes pulled into the parking lot. He walked into my office building with his lawyer, a corporate attorney named David Brenner whom I recognized from previous dealings. They looked confused to be meeting at my small consulting office. Sarah directed them to our conference room. I waited until exactly 10 a.m. then walked in with Theodore. Marcus's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, recognition, more confusion, and then slowly dawning horror. "Rachel, what are you doing here? Where's the silent partner?" I sat down across from him. "Hi Marcus. I'm the silent partner. He stared at me. That's not funny. I'm not joking. I slid a folder across the table. These are the corporate documents from 2016 showing the LLC network that owns 51% of Martech Logistics. The trail leads to me. Theodore has been serving as intermediary for 8 years per the anonymity protocols in the partnership agreement. Marcus's lawyer, David, was already reviewing the documents. His face confirmed everything. This is impossible, Marcus said. You don't have this kind of money. You run a small consulting firm. I built a $340 million portfolio over the last 15 years through strategic investing, I said calmly. I've been an active angel investor in 17 companies. I've served as a silent partner in 9 ventures. Martech Logistics was my largest single investment at $180 million in 2016 when you were facing bankruptcy. But the bank said it was institutional investors. A consortium. The bank said what I told them to say. Through Theodore I structured complete anonymity. You've been operating under the impression that you owned 85% of your company. In reality you own 38% after accounting for debt conversion. I own 51%. The remaining 11% is held by your early employees through the equity compensation plan. Marcus looked physically ill. 8 years. You've owned half my company for 8 years and never said anything. I provided $180 million to save your company from collapse. I took a 12% annual return, which is below market for growth capital of that risk level. I asked for no board seat, no public recognition, no involvement in operations beyond strategic guidance that Theodore passed along anonymously. I've been the foundation of Martech Logistics' success while you've spent 8 years telling me I don't understand real business. Why? His voice was barely above a whisper. Because 8 years ago you were my brother and you needed help. I had the capital. I believed in your vision even if I thought your execution needed work. So I structured an investment that would save you without embarrassing you by revealing that your little sister was your financial savior. And now you're destroying it all? You're pulling out and forcing a liquidation event. I'm exercising my rights under a legal partnership agreement. You have 3 options. Buy out my position for fair market value, agree to accelerate the acquisition talks with proceeds distributed per ownership percentages, or find alternative financing. David the lawyer spoke up. Mr. Chen, given your actual equity position and debt load, option 1 isn't financially viable. You can't raise $433 to $561 million to buy out your sister's position. Option 3 is similarly problematic. No institutional investor will provide that capital at terms you can afford on a 90-day timeline. Which leaves option 2. The acquisition, Marcus said flatly. The acquisition, I confirmed. Which proceeds with both of us as equal partners in the negotiations. You own 38%, I own 51%. At the valuations you announced at your party, $850 million to $1.1 billion. Your net position would be approximately $180 to $240 million before taxes. My position would be $433 to $561 million. The numbers were clearly crushing him. You're going to make more than twice what I make from the company I built. From the company we built, Marcus. You provided vision and operations. I provided 51% of the capital that made that vision possible. This is a partnership even if you didn't know it until now. So what happens? We just sell the company? And everyone finds out that my little sister owns more of Martech than I do. During due diligence, yes. The acquiring company will discover the full ownership structure. Your friends, your colleagues, your employees, they'll all learn that you've been operating with a majority partner you didn't even know about. Marcus put his head in his hands. His lawyer looked uncomfortable. Why now? Marcus asked finally. If you've been fine staying silent for 8 years, why reveal yourself now? Why blow up the acquisition talks? I'm not blowing them up. I'm participating in them transparently. As for why now, on Saturday you told me to stick to my little side projects. You said real business was beyond me. You've said versions of that for 14 years. I'm tired of it, Marcus. I'm tired of being dismissed while providing the foundation for your success. I'm tired of you claiming sole credit for building something that wouldn't exist without my capital. So this is revenge. You're humiliating me because I hurt your feelings. I'm enforcing the legal reality of our business relationship because I'm done pretending your perception matches reality. You don't own Martech Logistics, Marcus. We do. And it's time you acknowledged that. Theodore spoke up quietly. Mr. Chen, for what it's worth, your sister has been an extraordinary partner. Every major strategic decision you've made over the last 8 years, the fleet automation, the logistics software development, the regional expansion strategy, those came from recommendations she fed through me. You thought they were coming from financial advisors or consultants. They were coming from Rachel. Marcus looked stricken. The automation project? That was your idea. Yes. You told me at Dad's birthday 3 years ago that automation was a tech fad for people who didn't understand the logistics industry. 2 months later, Theodore suggested you explore fleet automation. You thought it was his idea. It saved you $22 million annually. The software development? Wine. You said at Thanksgiving 2 years ago that proprietary software was unnecessary overhead for a logistics company. 1 month later, Theodore recommended the development project. It's now your competitive advantage and a major driver of your acquisition valuations. Marcus was shaking his head slowly. Everything? Every strategic decision that actually worked. Not everything. You've made good operational decisions. You're excellent at client relationships and team management. But the capital allocation, the strategic positioning, the growth strategy, that's been me, channeled through Theodore while you've been telling me I don't understand business. So what do you want? An apology? Public acknowledgement? I want honesty in our business relationship going forward. The acquisition talks continue with both of us at the table as partners. We split proceeds according to our ownership percentages. And you stopped dismissing my business acumen because I've been demonstrating it for 8 years while you weren't paying attention. David cleared his throat. Mr. Chen, I'd recommend we agree to Ms. Chen's terms. The partnership agreement is ironclad. She has the legal right to force this situation. Fighting it would only delay and complicate the acquisition, potentially killing the deal entirely. Your best path forward is cooperation. Marcus looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Something between respect, humiliation, and anger. The family is going to find out. Dad, Mom, everyone. They're all going to know that my little sister owns more of my company than I do. Yes. They're going to know I've been taking credit for success that was partially yours. Yes. I'm going to look like an idiot. The brilliant entrepreneur who didn't even know who his majority partner was. Probably. He was quiet for a long moment. I've been an ass to you for 14 years. Yes. I'm sorry. He looked up, meeting my eyes. I'm genuinely sorry, Rachel. I should have listened. I should have respected your opinions. I should have. He stopped. This whole time, you were smarter than me and I was too arrogant to see it. You're not stupid, Marcus. You built something valuable. You just didn't build it alone and you need to acknowledge that. Okay. He took a deep breath. Hey. We proceed with the acquisition as partners. Full transparency. You get your 51%, I get my 38%. We split the credit publicly. We acknowledge reality publicly. You built the operations. I provided the capital and strategy. Both were necessary. Neither alone would have succeeded. David pulled out a document. I'd recommend we formalize this agreement immediately. Ms. Chen withdraws her liquidation notice contingent on Mr. Chen's cooperation in the acquisition process and public acknowledgement of the partnership structure. Both parties commit to transparent dealings with the acquiring firm. We spent the next 2 hours working through the details. By 12:30 p.m. we had a signed agreement. The acquisition talks would continue with both of us involved. The ownership structure would be disclosed during due diligence. We'd present as business partners, not just siblings. As Marcus was leaving, he turned back at the door. That automation project that saved $22 million annually. How did you know it would work? Because I'd invested in 3 other logistics companies that had implemented similar systems. I'd seen the data. I knew the ROI. And the software development? I angel invested in the firm we ultimately hired to build it. I knew their capabilities. So this whole time, you've been building expertise in my industry while I thought you were just running a small consulting firm. Yes. He shook his head slowly. I really have been an idiot. You've been dismissive. There's a difference. After they left, Theodore stayed behind. That went better than I expected. I thought he might become combative. He's processing. The anger might come later. Perhaps. But Miss Chin, for what it's worth, you handled that with remarkable grace. You could have humiliated him much more severely. I don't want to humiliate him, Theodore. I want him to see me clearly. There's a difference. The acquisition talks proceeded over the next 90 days. Marcus and I attended meetings together, presented as business partners. The acquiring firm, a Fortune 500 logistics conglomerate, conducted thorough due diligence. When they discovered the ownership structure, the silent partner who'd owned 51% for 8 years, they were fascinated rather than concerned. It demonstrated sophisticated capital management and strategic patience. The final valuation came in at $980 million. My 51% stake was worth $499.8 million before taxes. Marcus's 38% was worth $372.4 million before taxes. The remaining 11% went to employees through the equity plan. The press release announcing the acquisition mentioned both of us as co-founders. Marcus gave interviews where he credited strategic partnership with sophisticated investors for the company's success. He didn't hide my involvement, but he also didn't broadcast the family connection initially. The family found out anyway, of course. Mom called me 2 weeks after the announcement. Rachel, honey, I just saw the acquisition announcement. It says you owned 51% of Martech Logistics? Since 2016. Yes, Mom. But where did you get $180 million? I built a portfolio over 15 years through careful investing. I've been much more successful financially than I've let on. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? Marcus didn't believe my business advice was worth listening to. Neither did Dad. I figured my capital could speak louder than my words. She was quiet for a moment. You made more from the acquisition than Marcus did. I own more of the company than Marcus did. That's how equity works. He's having a hard time with it. His ego is bruised. His ego needed bruising, Mom. He's been dismissing me for 14 years while unknowingly depending on my capital and strategy. Maybe this is educational. You could have told him sooner. You didn't have to let it be such a shock. I provided 8 years of anonymous support at below-market returns. I asked for nothing except consistent performance. He chose to spend those 8 years telling me I didn't understand real business. The shock is a natural consequence of his own assumptions. You're being cruel, Rachel. I'm being honest, Mom. There's a difference. Dad's reaction was more complicated. He called the next week and asked to meet for coffee. I owe you an apology, he said without preamble. I've been proud of the wrong kid for the wrong reasons. Marcus built something impressive, but you financed it. You made it possible. And we've all been treating you like you didn't understand business while you were demonstrating sophistication none of us recognized. Thank you for saying that, Dad. How did you do it? How did you build that kind of wealth without any of us noticing? I lived modestly, invested wisely, and didn't broadcast my success. You all saw what you expected to see. The younger daughter with the small consulting firm. You never looked closely enough to see what I actually was. Which was someone who understood capital markets better than anyone else in this family. Someone who had the resources to save her brother's company and the humility to do it anonymously. Someone who valued results over recognition. Until you didn't anymore. Until I got tired of being invisible while providing the foundation for someone else's visibility. Yes. He nodded slowly. Marcus tells me you could have destroyed him. Forced liquidation killed the acquisition, left him with nothing. But you structured it so he still comes out with $372 million. I never wanted to destroy him, Dad. I wanted him to see me. There's a difference. He sees you now. We all do. The money transferred in December. After taxes, I netted approximately $312 million from the acquisition, bringing my total portfolio to roughly $652 million. Marcus netted approximately $233 million after taxes, still an extraordinary outcome. We're not close now. We're cordial at family gatherings, professional when we need to interact. He's building a new venture with his proceeds, a logistics technology company. He hasn't asked me to invest. I've moved into a slightly nicer apartment, though still nothing flashy. I'm exploring new investment opportunities, serving as an angel investor and strategic partner for early-stage companies. I do it under my own name now, openly, no more anonymity protocols. Sometimes I wonder if I should have handled it differently. If I should have told Marcus the truth years ago, forced the acknowledgement earlier, avoided the explosive revelation. But then I remember Saturday dinner. Stick to your little side projects. Real business is beyond you. Said to the person who owned 51% of his company, who'd saved him from bankruptcy, who'd provided every major strategic insight that drove his success. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is stop protecting people from the reality of their own dependencies. I didn't destroy my brother's business. I revealed the foundation it was built on. A foundation he'd been standing on for 8 years without bothering to look down and see who was holding it up. Now he knows. Now everyone knows. And I'm done being invisible while being indispensable. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply stop hiding your power. And let people face the reality they should have seen all along. The thing about being underestimated your entire life is that you learn to stay quiet. You learn to observe. You learn that sometimes the most powerful move is simply watching people reveal exactly who they are. I'm Marcus Chin, 31 years old, and I've been the family disappointment for as long as I can remember. While my sister Jennifer climbed the corporate ladder at her tech startup, landing promotions and posting about her executive lifestyle on social media, I supposedly struggled through various entry-level government jobs that my family barely understood and certainly didn't respect. Still pushing papers at that boring office? Dad would ask at family gatherings, barely hiding his disappointment. Marcus works for some federal agency, Mom would explain to relatives with an apologetic shrug. Something with banking regulations. We don't really understand it. Jennifer, 3 years older, never missed an opportunity to remind everyone of the gap between us. I just closed a $3 million deal, she'd announce at Sunday dinners. Meanwhile, Marcus is probably filing paperwork for his $60,000 government salary. The family would laugh. I'd smile and change the subject. What they didn't know, what I couldn't tell them due to the nature of my work, was that I was a senior special agent with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, a division of the U.S. Treasury Department. My boring government job involved investigating complex financial fraud, money laundering operations, and identity theft rings that moved hundreds of millions of dollars. My security clearance was higher than most people knew existed. My cases had taken down international criminal organizations. My testimony had sent dozens of fraudsters to federal prison. But I drove a modest Honda, lived in a small apartment in Arlington, and wore suits from Macy's. The work required discretion. High-profile wealth attracted attention, and attention compromised investigations. So I let my family think I was boring, unsuccessful Marcus who couldn't compete with brilliant Jennifer. It had been manageable until about 6 months ago, when Jennifer's behavior started changing. She'd always been competitive, but there was a new edge to her cruelty. An urgency. "Mom, don't lend Marcus any money," she'd warned loudly at Easter dinner. "He's terrible with finances. Always has been. Remember when you couldn't even get approved for that credit card?" She'd laughed at my nephew's birthday party. "Some of us are just better with money." I'd noticed other things too. Jennifer had bought a new luxury SUV. Designer handbags appeared regularly on her Instagram. She'd mentioned expanding her investment portfolio and diversifying her assets. For someone who'd complained about student loans just a year ago, she seemed to have found a significant cash infusion. But I'd been deep in a major investigation, a cryptocurrency Ponzi scheme affecting thousands of victims, and didn't have the mental bandwidth to analyze my sister's finances. I figured she'd gotten a promotion or a bonus. I should have paid closer attention. The text came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was in a briefing about a multi-state identity theft ring we'd been tracking for 8 months. "Mom, family dinner this Sunday. Your father has an announcement. Be there." I almost canceled. Sundays were my only day off, and spending them enduring Jennifer's commentary on my failed career wasn't exactly relaxing. But Dad's announcements were usually significant. Retirements, health updates, major family decisions. I texted back, "I'll be there." Sunday dinner at my parents' house in Bethesda was the same elaborate production it had always been. Mom's dining room table seated 12, and she used every inch of it. The good china, the crystal glasses, the linen napkins that required special laundering. Jennifer arrived in her new Mercedes SUV. A GLE 450, I noted, around $75,000, wearing what looked like a Burberry coat. She air-kissed Mom and immediately started talking about her latest business victory. The board approved my proposal, she announced, pouring herself wine. I'm basically running the entire East Coast operations now. That's wonderful, honey, Mom beamed. Marcus, did you hear? Your sister is running the entire East Coast. Congratulations, I said, taking my usual seat at the far end of the table. Dad cleared his throat. Before we eat, I want to share some news. Your mother and I have decided to update our estate plan. Jennifer's eyes sharpened with interest. We're getting older, Dad continued, and we want to make sure everything is properly organized. We've been working with our attorney to restructure our assets, set up trusts, ensure everything is fair. Fair is important, Jennifer said quickly. Though obviously contributions should be considered. Some of us have been more successful than others. The comment hung in the air. I said nothing. We're splitting everything equally, Mom said firmly. But there are some financial considerations we need to discuss. Medical expenses, long-term care insurance, that sort of thing. Dinner proceeded with its usual dynamics. Jennifer dominated the conversation with stories about her company, her deals, her executive decisions. My uncle asked polite questions. My aunt made impressed sounds. I ate quietly, responded when spoken to, and thought about the cryptocurrency case. We were close to making arrests. Then, as Mom was serving dessert, Jennifer's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, smiled, and looked directly at me. Actually, she said, voice dripping with satisfaction, speaking of financial success and responsibility, I have something to share. The table went quiet. Marcus, she continued, I want to thank you for being such an inspiration. I looked up. Her smile was predatory. You inspired me to take control of my finances, to make bold moves, to not let anything hold me back. She paused dramatically. So I used your identity to secure an $85,000 personal loan. The approval came through last month. The words didn't immediately register. I stared at her. What? I said quietly. An $85,000 loan, she repeated, clearly enjoying herself. In your name. Your credit was actually better than I expected. All those years of living like a boring government employee paid off. The bank approved it immediately. Jennifer, Dad said slowly, what are you talking about? Oh, don't worry, she waved dismissively. I'm making the payments. Well, most of them. Marcus won't even notice. It's not like he checks his credit reports. She laughed. He probably doesn't even know how. My aunt gasped. My uncle looked confused. You committed identity theft, I said, my voice perfectly calm. You fraudulently obtained a loan using my personal information. Identity theft? Jennifer laughed harder. It's not theft when it's family. I needed the capital for an investment opportunity, and your credit was just sitting there unused. I'm actually doing you a favor, building your credit history. That's illegal, I said. What are you going to do about it? She leaned back in her chair, supremely confident. Report your own sister? Take me to court? You can't even afford a lawyer on your government salary. Mom laughed nervously. Marcus can't afford legal fees. Jennifer, honey, maybe you should have asked first, but... Asked. Jennifer interrupted. Why? He would have said no and the opportunity would have passed. This is what successful people do, Marcus. We make bold moves. We don't wait for permission. You forged my signature, I said, still calm. You falsified loan documents. You committed federal banking fraud. Federal banking fraud, Jennifer mocked. Listen to you with your big government words. This is a family matter. And frankly, I'm contributing more to this family's success than you ever have. Consider it a family loan that I took the initiative to arrange. Without his consent, my uncle said quietly. Jennifer, It's smart, she cut him off. It's resourceful. It's what winners do. She looked at me. What are you going to do about it, Marcus? Cry to Mom and Dad? They can't help you. File a police report? You'd have to prove I did it, and I was very careful. She pulled out her phone and showed the table a screenshot. See? The loan is in Marcus's name, but the funds went to my investment account. Completely traceable to legitimate business purposes. I even have documents showing Marcus agreed to co-sign. She smiled. Documents with a signature that matches his perfectly. You forged government documents, I said quietly. I created opportunity, she corrected. Something you've never understood. You've spent your whole life playing it safe, following rules, staying small. I take risks. I make things happen. And yes, sometimes that means being creative with resources. Dad was pale. Jennifer, if you needed money. I didn't need charity, she snapped. I needed capital. And Marcus's credit was available. It's not like he was using it for anything important. He turned to me. When was the last time you even checked your credit score? Do you even know how to access your credit report? The truth was, I checked my credit reports weekly. Part of my job involved understanding how identity thieves operated, which meant monitoring my own information obsessively. I'd seen the inquiry from Jennifer's bank 3 weeks ago. I'd seen the loan approval. I'd watched the entire fraud unfold in real time. And I'd been building a case. What can you do about it? Jennifer pressed. Seriously, Marcus. You can't afford a lawyer. You can't prove anything. And even if you could, are you really going to send your own sister to court over a loan she's making payments on? Some of the payments, I corrected quietly. She blinked. What? You said you're making most of the payments, which means you've already missed some. The bank has sent 3 late payment notices to my address. I have them all. Her confidence flickered. You're bluffing. The first missed payment was 6 weeks ago. The second was 3 weeks ago. The third arrived yesterday. Kept my voice level. Each missed payment damages my credit score. Each one creates a paper trail of fraud. It's not fraud, she insisted, but uncertainty crept into her voice. What can I do about it? I repeated her question. That's interesting phrasing. I pulled out my phone. The table watched as I typed a brief message. Initiate fraud investigation. Target confirmed. Location: 4821 Brookside Drive, Bethesda, Maryland. Multiple witnesses present. Subject has confessed to federal banking fraud, identity theft, and document forgery. I hit send. Who are you texting? Jennifer demanded. My team, I said simply. Your team. She laughed, but it sounded forced. Your boring office colleagues? What are they going to do, file a complaint? Not exactly, I said. My phone buzzed. Response from Deputy Director Karen Martinez. Units dispatching. 88 minutes. Recording authorization confirmed. Marcus, Mom said nervously, what's going on? I need to read you your rights, Jennifer, I said calmly. She stared at me. My rights. You have the right to remain silent, I began. Stop it, she snapped. This isn't funny. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Marcus, stop playing games. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you. I don't need a fucking attorney. Jennifer shouted. You're not a cop. You're right, I said. I'm not a police officer. I reached into my jacket and pulled out my credentials. Federal badge on one side, identification on the other. I'm Senior Special Agent Marcus Chin, Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, U.S. Treasury Department. I specialize in banking fraud, identity theft, and financial crimes investigations. The room went completely silent. Jennifer's face drained of color. That's not, you work a desk job. I investigate complex financial fraud, I continued. My current caseload includes a multi-state identity theft ring, a cryptocurrency Ponzi scheme, and as of 3 weeks ago, a personal case involving my own stolen identity. Dad stood up slowly. Marcus, you're a federal agent? For 7 years, I confirmed. I couldn't tell you due to the sensitive nature of my investigations. My position requires discretion. But you said we thought, Mom stammered. You thought I was a low-level government clerk, I finished. Which was safer for everyone. High-profile wealth attracts attention. Attention compromises investigations. So I lived modestly and let you believe I was unsuccessful. Jennifer was shaking. You can't arrest me. I'm your sister. That's exactly why I can arrest you, I said. You committed federal crimes. You stole my identity. You defrauded a federally insured banking institution. You forged documents. And you did it all while knowing I work for the government, which adds additional charges. I didn't know you were. You knew I worked for a federal agency, I interrupted. You used that information to assume I was powerless. You assumed wrong. Outside, I heard vehicles approaching. Multiple vehicles. Marcus, please, Jennifer's voice cracked. I'll pay it back. I'll cancel the loan. We can fix this. You've made 3 late payments, I said. The bank has already reported it to credit bureaus. The damage is done. And more importantly, you committed federal crimes. That doesn't disappear because we're related. But I'm your sister. Which makes it worse, I said quietly. You targeted a federal agent. You used family access to commit fraud. Those are aggravating factors, not excuses. The doorbell rang. Dad walked to the door in a daze and opened it. 6 FBI agents stood on the porch, led by Deputy Director Martinez herself. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed, wearing a windbreaker with FBI in large yellow letters. Agent Chin, she nodded to me. Subject present? Seated at the table, I confirmed. She's been read her rights. She's made multiple incriminating statements in front of witnesses. Jennifer stood up, panicking. This is insane. Marcus, tell them this is a mistake. Jennifer Marie Chin, Deputy Director Martinez said formally, you are under arrest for federal banking fraud, identity theft, document forgery, and wire fraud. You have the right to remain silent. I know my fucking rights. Jennifer screamed. Marcus, do something. I am doing something, I said calmly. I'm prosecuting a federal case. 2 agents moved to handcuff Jennifer. She struggled, screaming about family loyalty and betrayal and how I was ruining her life. Agent Chin, Martinez said quietly, we'll need statements from everyone present. Your family witnessed the confession. Multiple confessions, I confirmed. She detailed the entire fraud, admitted to forging documents and acknowledged missed payments. Mom was crying. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. My uncle spoke up, his voice steady. I heard everything. She confessed to identity theft and fraud. She was bragging about it. Same, my aunt added. She seemed proud of what she'd done. Martinez nodded. We'll need those statements officially. And Agent Chin, given the personal nature of this case, you'll need to recuse yourself from the investigation. Understood, I said. I've documented everything. The case file is ready for transfer. Jennifer was still screaming as they led her outside. You're supposed to protect me. You're my brother. How can you do this to family? You did this to yourself, I said quietly. I just documented it. The FBI vehicles pulled away, Jennifer visible in the back of one, still shouting. The neighbors had come outside. Someone was filming. Inside, my parents sat in stunned silence. Marcus, Mom finally said, how long have you been a federal agent? 7 years, I repeated. Since I was 24. I was recruited during college by the Treasury Department. They wanted someone with my financial analysis background and language skills. Language skills? Dad asked weakly. I speak Mandarin, Japanese, and Korean fluently, I said. Useful for international financial crimes. You knew I studied languages, you just didn't know why. We thought it was a hobby, Mom whispered. It was training, I corrected. For complex investigations involving international fraud networks. But you live in that small apartment, Dad said. You drive that old car. Part of my cover, I explained. Federal agents investigating financial crimes can't appear wealthy. It compromises our ability to work undercover, to blend in, to be underestimated. I paused. Being underestimated is actually a significant advantage in my work. Jennifer said you couldn't afford a lawyer, Mom said. I have an entire legal department at my disposal, I said. The U.S. Attorney's Office handles my cases. I also have connections with the FBI, Secret Service, IRS criminal investigation, and Homeland Security investigations. I looked at my parents. I couldn't afford a lawyer because I don't need one. I work with the people who prosecute the lawyers. My uncle spoke carefully. Marcus, what happens now? Jennifer will be processed at the FBI field office, I said. She'll be formally charged with multiple federal crimes. Given the dollar amount, $85,000, And the interstate nature of the fraud, she's looking at significant federal prison time. Prison? Mom gasped. Federal sentencing guidelines for identity theft and banking fraud are strict, I explained. She'll likely face 5 to 7 years minimum, possibly more given the aggravating factors. What aggravating factors? She targeted a federal agent. She used family access to commit the crime. She showed no remorse, in fact she bragged about it. She attempted to justify criminal behavior. And she's already defaulted on the payments, which demonstrates intent to defraud. Dad put his head in his hands. Can you help her? No, I said simply. I can't interfere with a federal investigation. And honestly I wouldn't. She committed serious crimes. She needs to face consequences. But she's your sister, Mom pleaded. Which makes it worse, I said again. She had family access to my personal information. She exploited that trust. She deliberately targeted me because she thought I was powerless. That's not a mistake, that's calculated predatory behavior. My phone buzzed. Text from Martinez, subject lawyered up. Requesting personal effects search. Need family consent or warrant. I looked at my parents. The FBI wants to search Jennifer's room here. They can get a warrant or you can consent. What are they looking for? Dad asked. Evidence of other frauds, I said. If she did this to me, she's probably done it to others. They'll be looking for documents, account statements, other people's personal information. Mom nodded slowly. Search it. 20 minutes later, 2 FBI agents were photographing Jennifer's childhood bedroom, now her guest room when she visited. They found a locked file box in her closet. Agent Chin, one of them, called. You need to see this. Inside the box were credit card statements in multiple names. Applications for loans. Copies of driver's licenses and social security cards. That's Dad's information, I said quietly, pointing to one set. And Mom's. And Uncle Ray's. My uncle went pale. She stole my identity too? The agent bagged everything carefully. We'll need to notify these victims and open additional investigations. How many people? Dad asked weakly. At least 6 from what we're seeing here, the agent said. Could be more. Mom was crying harder now. Our own daughter. Your daughter is a serial identity thief, I said gently. She's been running a fraud operation targeting her own family. She chose me first because she thought I couldn't fight back. But her job, Dad said. Her company, her success. Probably bought with stolen money, I said. They'll audit her finances. If she's been living beyond her means, they'll trace every dollar. My phone rang. Martinez. Agent Chin, subject is requesting to speak with you. Says she wants to make a deal. No deals, I said immediately. She confessed to federal crimes in front of witnesses. She showed no remorse. She targeted a federal agent and multiple family members. There's nothing to negotiate. Understood. Her attorney is pushing back, but we have solid evidence. The loan documents alone prove forgery. Combined with her recorded confession and the evidence from her residence, this is airtight. Timeline for charges? U.S. Attorney wants to move fast. Formal indictment by Wednesday. Arraignment by Friday. Given the evidence, they're not offering bail. She's a serial fraudster with access to sophisticated financial knowledge. Flight risk. I hung up and looked at my parents. Jennifer will be formally charged on Wednesday. The U.S. Attorney's Office is handling the prosecution. She won't get bail. She'll be in jail until trial? Mom whispered. Federal Detention Center, I corrected. And yes, she's committed multiple federal crimes and has access to financial resources. They can't risk her fleeing. Dad stood slowly. Marcus, I don't understand. Why did you wait? You said you knew 3 weeks ago. Why didn't you stop her immediately? I needed evidence, I said. Identity theft cases require proof of intent. I had to demonstrate that she knowingly committed fraud, that she understood it was illegal, and that she planned to continue the crime. You were investigating your own sister, he said. I was doing my job, I corrected. When I saw the loan inquiry, I opened a case file. I documented everything. I waited for her to act, to miss payments, to make incriminating statements, to demonstrate criminal intent. You let her keep stealing, Uncle Ray said quietly. I let her finish building her own case, I said. Every missed payment, every forged document, every dollar spent added to the charges. If I'd stopped her immediately, she could have claimed it was a mistake, a miscommunication. By waiting, I let her prove it was deliberate, ongoing fraud. That's cold, my aunt said. That's prosecution, I replied. Emotions don't convict criminals. Evidence does. My phone buzzed with another message. This one from the forensic accounting team. Initial audit shows $340,000 in fraudulent loans and credit cards across 6 victims. Subject's legitimate income, $95,000 annually. Lifestyle expenses, $180,000 plus. Gap funded entirely by fraud. I showed my parents the message. She's been living a complete lie, Mom said softly. The luxury car, the designer clothes, the expensive dinners, all stolen. All borrowed against other people's identities, I confirmed. She built an entire lifestyle on fraud. How long? Dad asked. We'll know more after the full investigation, but probably 2 to 3 years, I said. That's when her spending patterns changed dramatically. And we never noticed, Mom whispered. She was careful, I said. She targeted family members she thought wouldn't check their credit reports regularly. She kept the loan amounts below thresholds that would trigger automatic investigations. She made enough payments to avoid immediate default. It was sophisticated fraud. But she got caught, Uncle Ray said. Because she got greedy, I said. And because she targeted someone who actually understood financial crimes. I looked at my parents. I'm sorry this happened. I'm sorry your daughter is going to federal prison. But she made choices. She committed crimes. She hurt people. People? Dad asked. Who else? The bank lost money when she defaulted. Other identity theft victims will spend years cleaning up their credit. The financial system itself is damaged when people commit fraud. These aren't victimless crimes. The FBI agents finished their search and left with boxes of evidence. My family sat in the wreckage of dinner, dessert still sitting on the table, barely touched. What happens now? Mom asked. The investigation continues, I said. The FBI will interview all the victims, audit all of Jennifer's accounts, trace every fraudulent transaction. The U.S. attorney will build the prosecution. Jennifer will get a court-appointed attorney if she can't afford one, which she probably can't since her assets will be frozen. Frozen. Proceeds of criminal activity, I explained. Everything she bought with stolen money can be seized. The car, the jewelry, the investments, all of it. She'll have nothing, Dad said. She'll have what she earned legitimately, I corrected. Which isn't much. Most of her lifestyle was funded by fraud. My phone rang again. This time a number I didn't recognize. Agent Chin. This is Attorney David Morrison representing Jennifer Chin. My client would like to speak with you about a possible resolution. There's nothing to resolve, I said. Your client confessed to multiple federal crimes in front of 6 witnesses. She's being prosecuted. She's your sister, he said. Surely there's room for family consideration. I'm a federal agent, I interrupted. Family consideration doesn't apply to criminal prosecution. Your client committed serious crimes. She'll face serious consequences. She's willing to pay restitution. That doesn't eliminate federal charges, I said. Bank fraud, identity theft, wire fraud, document forgery. These are prosecutable offenses regardless of restitution. We can argue it was a family misunderstanding. We have recorded confessions, I said flatly. Your client bragged about committing fraud. She detailed her methods. She showed no remorse. There's no misunderstanding. Silence on the other end. Mr. Morrison, your client is facing 5 to 7 years minimum in federal prison. That's the reality. I suggest you prepare her for that instead of wasting time on negotiations that won't happen. I hung up. Dad was staring at me. You really won't help her. I really won't compromise a federal investigation, I said. Would you want me to? Would you want federal agents to ignore crimes because they know the criminal? He didn't answer. Jennifer made choices, I continued. She chose to steal identities. She chose to forge documents. She chose to commit fraud. She chose to target her own family because she thought we were safe, easy marks. I paused. She chose wrong. She's going to prison, Mom said as if the reality was finally sinking in. Yes, I confirmed. For a long time. Because of you. Because of her crimes, I corrected firmly. I documented evidence. I followed protocol. I protected other potential victims. Jennifer is going to prison because she committed federal crimes, not because I reported them. My uncle cleared his throat. Marcus, I need to check my credit reports. If she stole my information. She did, I said. The FBI found applications in your name. You'll need to file reports with the credit bureaus, place fraud alerts, possibly freeze your credit. The FBI Victim Assistance Coordinator will help you through the process. And your parents? My aunt asked quietly. Same, I said. Everyone she targeted will need to take protective measures. Dad looked broken. Our daughter destroyed our family. Your daughter is a criminal, I said not unkindly. That's different from who you thought she was, but it's who she chose to be. The evening ended with FBI business cards, victim assistance hotline numbers, and the hollow feeling of a family fractured beyond repair. As I drove home to my modest apartment, my phone buzzed with updates. Jennifer's formal charges. The evidence inventory. The prosecutor's initial assessment. It was a solid case. Airtight. She'd built her own prison with every fraudulent transaction. 3 days later, Jennifer Chin was formally indicted on 14 counts of federal fraud, identity theft, and related crimes. The U.S. attorney requested no bail, citing her as a sophisticated financial criminal with means and motive to flee. The judge agreed. Jennifer would remain in federal detention until trial. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. Jennifer's own confessions, caught on my phone's voice recorder with proper authorization. The forged documents. The stolen identities. The spending patterns that proved deliberate, ongoing fraud. She was convicted on all counts. Sentencing came 3 months later. Jennifer Marie Chin, the judge said, looking stern, you have been convicted of serious federal crimes. You targeted your own family members, people who trusted you, and exploited that trust for financial gain. You showed no remorse. In fact, you bragged about your crimes. You believed you were above consequences. Jennifer stood wearing an orange jumpsuit, her expensive haircut grown out and unkempt. You were wrong, the judge continued. This court sentences you to 8 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years supervised release. You will also pay restitution totaling $340,000 to your victims, and all assets purchased with fraudulent funds will be seized and liquidated. Mom sobbed in the gallery. Dad sat stone-faced. I sat in the back, watching justice unfold exactly as it should. 8 years. Jennifer would be 39 when she was released. Her career destroyed. Her reputation ruined. Her freedom gone. All because she thought her boring, unsuccessful brother couldn't fight back. As I left the courthouse, my phone buzzed. Message from Deputy Director Martinez. Excellent work on the Chin case. Your documentation was flawless. The U.S. Attorney was impressed. This will reflect well in your performance review. I texted back, just doing my job. Because that's what it was. Not revenge. Not family drama. Just a federal agent investigating financial crimes and protecting victims. Even when the criminal was my sister. Especially when the criminal was my sister.